Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the my favorite WWF LJN Wrestling Superstars tournament. Currently, we are on round 1, part 13. So, with the conclusion of the first 12 episodes, we are officially 75% of the way through the first round of this tournament. Now, obviously, we are going to cut down half of the episodes with each subsequent round of the tournament. So, with 16 first round episodes, 8 episodes in round 2, 4 episodes in round 3, etc. So we are getting closer to completing, obviously, this first round, and with less than 10 episodes in round 2, once we get through this first round, it's pretty much gonna be smooth sailing from round 2 onward. So, and how am I gonna pick my winners from round 2 onward? As tough as it's been, these first couple of, pretty much every video has pretty much been a difficult selection. Going in round 2, I mean, are these 40-minute videos going to start turning into hour-long videos? Because I am going to have a hell of a time making my selections. I hope not. I hope we can pretty much keep it to, 35 to 45-minute videos, if not, shorter, but we shall see. So, with that being said, let's begin episode 13 of the tournament. So, let's start off with the first matchup, which is going to include number 34 blue shirt referee, as he does battle against number 74 Jerry Lawler. So I've been pretty much classifying the blue shirt referee as Earl Hebner. And let's start off with the referee. And I kind of said the same thing with the white shirt referee when we brought him up earlier in the tournament. Now, nobody in the LJN universe is calling the white and blue shirt referee Hebner twins. But I am. For like the last year or two, I have been saying that these are the Hebners. Yeah, early in the collection phase, whenever I've done reviews of the referees, it's always been, no, these are not named after anybody. These are just generic, run-of-the-mill figures, bootleg, whatever you want to call them. They're, like I said, they're just generic pieces. Not really, it's not your Danny Davis, it's not your Hebners, it's not anybody, right? But why not? This is my argument. It's been my argument for over a year now. Why aren't these the Hebners? You've released 2 referees in 1988. You could have just put out 1 referee figure. It's fine. You're a kid. What do you need with 2 referee figures? But in 1988, what was the big thing that was going on? Hulk Hogan was your champion. But he was also in the process of filming No Holds Barred, which was getting released in 1989, right? So, as heavyweight champion, they needed to get the title off of him. And the whole big event with the house show, or what was it? Saturday's Main Event, I think it was. And he lost the title to Andre the Giant. And the whole scenario with Ted DiBiase paying off Earl Hebner, the evil twin. They locked Dave Hebner in a closet, and the evil twin took his place. The quick count. Hulk Hogan's shoulder was up, but they still counted him out as if he just got pinned. The money in the pocket fraud. Oh my God, that interview with Hulk Hogan and Mean Gene Okerlund afterwards. Love that freaking interview to this day. Insane. Of course, Mean Gene and Hulk Hogan, they've always had the best interviews. I mean, they just had the greatest rapport, but... So, 1988, LJN released Series 5 of their LJN figures. You got 2 referees in Series 5, a white shirt referee, a blue shirt referee. In 1988, in real life, you had this real case scenario between a Earl Hebner, Dave Hebner, real life brothers, real life twins, why couldn't these characters be the Hebner twins? Maybe in real life, that's exactly what WWF and LJN were going for. Can anybody talk to somebody from LJN or that's still alive and maybe ask that question? Can somebody verify? Maybe it had nothing to do with that. And maybe that's just a sheer coincidence. But I like to think of it that way. I like to look at the white shirt as Dave Hebner. I like to look at blue shirt as Earl Hebner. Look at Zombie Sailors coming out with Series 1 at blue shirt referee, Earl Hebner, right? Look at Big Rubber Guys coming out with their blue shirt referee. Who is it? Earl freaking Hebner. Why can't LJN, why can't we look at the blue shirt referee way back when as Earl Hebner? Why can't we look at the white as Dave? It doesn't say manager, or well, actually I think they do say manager, but actually, do I have my manager? Yeah, I'm looking at the white shirt carded figure. It does say manager above it. So it just says manager, right? And, you know, referee at the bottom, so it doesn't give you a name. Dave Hebner, anything like that. Your Danny Davises, whatever. I mean, I don't really know the name of a lot of referees. I mean, those are kind of like the few that really stand out. And Danny Davis, because he's a wrestler, that one jumps out at you, obviously. Big John Studd. 1, 2, 3 Kid. I think Shawn Michaels was a guest referee once, but irrelevant, right? That's what I like. The referees, I'm always been a big fan of these figures. I think they're absolutely sensational. I mean, take me back to 1980s. Make me born 3 years earlier, 5 years earlier. Have me growing up with LJN figures. Give me these figures at age 5, 8 years old, whatever. Have me playing with these when I was a kid. Give me a referee when I was a kid. This would be a playable wrestling action figure. This is a perfect playable piece. Kind of like your Hillbilly Jim type. Kind of like your Terry Funk type. This would have been used like crazy. He would not have been an actual referee in ring. He would have been a referee, but he would have been like a referee gimmick. Maybe he worked at Foot Locker or something. I don't know. This would have been a gimmick. He would have been a serviceable figure, and yeah, with this pose, he probably would have had a lot of pushes, a lot of runs as champion. Why not? I already told you, man, if I was a kid, Hulk Hogan, Savage, Bret Hart, they would not have been your everyday, heavyweight champions. Guys like Outback Jack and Hillbilly Jim and Billy Jack Haynes, SD Jones, those would have been your heavyweight and intercontinental champions. Those would have been your tag team champions. Corporal Kirchner. Those would have been your consistent heavyweight champions and Royal Rumble champions and stuff like that, man. So this would have been a very serviceable piece. Now, from Random Treasures, you get Burger King. I just think it's a big flop and hilarious that they gave him this oversized crown. The joke writes itself with the crown. Yeah. The crown is really good. I like the crown a lot. I'm not making fun of the crown. It just because of, Jerry Lawler and just the way that he was treated in WWF, because he was treated like comedic relief a lot of the time as a wrestler. But him and Vince McMahon, I mean, to me, growing up, yes, you had Gorilla Monsoon, you had Bobby Heenan, love them on commentary together, but I feel like I knew more of Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler on mic together more than anything else. So when I talk about who is your Mount Rushmore of commentary, I think I put Vince and Jerry Lawler at the forefront, maybe Gorilla and Bobby Heenan on the back end, but those are my 4 guys. Jesse Ventura would probably be right on the outset of the top 4, obviously. So, barely, but he would just be on the outside. I probably should have not gone with the stock photo. I probably should have gone with a different color scheme, because the blue, it's, you know, it's a very simple figure. Maybe something like, you know, black and red or something. But I've always been a huge fan of this figure. Great play pose, very Ultimate Warrior LJN-ish for the most part. Very similar pose. A lot of problems I have with guys like Rick Martel, Big Boss Man, you know, Jim Duggan, you know, either thumbs up or pointer finger out, right? You got that same issue with this figure. Overall, though, it's a quality piece. But it's a custom, right? So you get that custom face, you get that custom skin and rubber. But overall, among Random Treasure exclusives, it's got to be one of my all-time favorites. Is it a top 10 among their exclusives? Maybe not anymore. Is it one of their top 20 best? I think it should be. If not a top 10, it's definitely in the top 20, I think. So definitely one of the more elite pieces from Random Treasures exclusives. And like I said, the crown is awesome. I mean, would I have liked it to be a little bit smaller so that it was more snug to the head? I would have liked that, because I don't like when accessories, you know, are so easily removable from the head. But again, it falls in line with the whole comedic purpose of Jerry Lawler. What more could I say about him? I mean, not a whole lot. I mean, guys from Tennessee, right? And in Tennessee wrestling, the man's a freaking legend. He actually does, like, I've seen a lot of promos. Blatant Interference Wrestling used to post a lot of promotions from, like, you know, these little sub territories, right? And he used to do a lot of Tennessee wrestling, where he would post videos of Jerry Lawler back in the day, you know, where after his wrestling matches, the local news would come on and do interviews for him and everything. And you just realize just how insanely good he was, how insanely beloved he was in his local territory. Then he comes over to, you know, WWF. I mean, he was an older guy. What was he, like late 30s, early 40s when he came to WWF? So, I mean, he was an older guy. He wasn't going to do a whole lot in WWF. And when you reach a certain age, yeah, I got it. You weren't expected to be a mega superstar in your 40s. But he was already an established talent. Me personally, I was a fan as a kid of Jerry Lawler. I would have loved to see him do more, and not just this cowardice outside the ring a lot of the time. Like Bobby Heenan. As a manager, he was always this cowardice outside the ring. But when you actually saw him actually in the ring, like when he had replaced Tully Blanchard for Survivor Series, you know, stuff like that, like he actually held his own, and, you know, actually very Ric Flair-ish, the way he went into the ropes and over the turnbuckles and stuff. So he sold the hell out of it. So I've always loved having Jerry Lawler. This is a tough match because poses, you know, not too far off from one another. Both extraordinary figures. Like, I am a huge fan of both pieces. Like, I want both of these to go very far. And I don't know if the other white referee, if he moved on to round 2 or not. Does that hurt this chance to move forward if the white referee didn't move on? It shouldn't, but I am going to go with Jerry Lawler, though. Like I said, among Random Treasures, this is one of my favorite pieces. Not just from their exclusives, but from the entire collection. It's definitely one of my all-time favorite pieces nonetheless. So, and the accessory, comedic accessory for the purpose of this figure, it does put it over the top. Jerry Lawler is a round 2 figure for me. Alright, next up. Interesting. I know looking at these, I don't have a definitive answer, so this one is going to be interesting as to which way I go on this one. Alright, so number 119. Butch of the Bushwhackers in green takes on So 119 takes on number 111, Sting Galoob 2-Up. And let's start with Sting. So I've always said that among Ram Treasure figures, I always feel like the Galoob 2-Ups are one of the things that they have done exceptionally well. And you really can't go wrong with the Galoob 2-Ups because the figures are already established. You're not creating a whole new figure, a whole new design. The figures already exist. So all you're doing is you're taking a figure that already exists in the world, already exists in the market, and you're just blowing it up. So the only thing that you really have to do with these pieces is make sure that the rubber that you're utilizing is a solid piece. Because if the rubber is bad, you're going to create a bad figure. Like I look at this thing, right? And I'm looking at like his elbow, right? And like this figure doesn't move off the shelf. And you could see that little bit of cut into the elbow. Like, why is the rubber starting to have holes in it? It shouldn't. It doesn't fall off the shelf. It doesn't get moved. Like, why is there damage to the actual rubber now? I mean, the Sting, I think, came out... I think Ric Flair was the first Galoob 2-Up that they came out with. I think Sting was second. So, that had to be, let's say, 2022. So, this is a much older figure. And back in 2022, maybe even as early or as late as 2023... Ram Treasures had this thing where they were using this very cheap rubber. And when you look at their older figures, you can tell the difference in the quality of rubber that they were using. I don't know if it was a cost-saving measure, if they were just trying to mess around with different rubbers to see what was the best use. I don't know. But the rubber is very poor quality. So that's the point about this particular piece. Question is, if you go on Ram Treasure's website today and you buy a Sting Galoob 2-Up, are you going to get the same quality figure, or are they going to use a different mold of rubber, better rubber that they utilize today with certain figures? Because if they still use this type of rubber, I can't endorse that, right? Because this right here isn't good. Now, if they use the sort of rubber that they use for, like, let's say El Gigante or, Dino Bravo, that type of rubber, that rubber is amazing. So, something like that, absolutely, 100%. Of all the Galoob figures I had as a kid, I didn't have a lot. I think I had like 7 US figures. So, and you think Sting was my favorite WCW wrestler when I was a kid, but we never had a Sting from Galoob. I mean, I would have used it, obviously. I mean, he wouldn't have been my favorite Galoob figure, but I mean, it would have been a serviceable piece. I talked about it before, like with Brian Pillman, right? So Brian Pillman and Sting, they essentially have this roughly the same pose. But I loved the Brian Pillman figure when I was a kid. But I look at the Sting, and this does not do anything for me. And you look at Macho Man Series 3 LJN, and he's Sting. Except instead of being Bam, he's Bam. I don't like this pose at all. I love the Brian Pillman figure. And he's just, instead of a straight up figure, he's kind of slouched forward. I love the open hands. And I prefer closed fists. But Brian Pillman, love the piece. Sting, not so much. If his hands were out more like Sid Vicious, this would have been incredible. Face paint is good. The design with the Scorpion is solid, but I just feel like even with the original Galoob, it's just a smaller, very thin figure. So with the original Galoob, it doesn't do anything for me. Now, when you look at like Ron Simmons Galoob, one of the worst figures ever, right? But when Ram Treasures took that figure, they blew it up, 8 inches, rubber. Suddenly, Ron Simmons as a LJN 2-Up it made a figure a lot better. It hasn't really done a lot for me with the Sting figure, unfortunately. It's still okay. It's still a figure in this tournament that could go multiple rounds. It just doesn't like overly excite me. If that makes it, if that makes any kind of sense whatsoever. Ooh, what's going on back here? And I don't think that has anything to do with the metal rod, because the metal rod doesn't go. Yeah, you see, like the metal rod doesn't move, so it's not like it's shooting up all the way up here. Yeah, see, I'm trying to move this rod up with all my strength, and it's not moving. So the rod's not moving up here to move the to wrap around the paint. So why is the paint coming off this? That's a damn shame, but this is what I'm talking about. This is, you don't see this type of paint loss on original LJNs. I have all my Latuni figures loose, or that I've had loose, all the big rubber guys. You don't see that sort of paint on any of these figures. Even my original customs, or my LJN customs that I buy from like off eBay or whatnot, I don't see that sort of paint loss on any of those figures. And I always wonder, like, what is it that they do on their figures that are different than Ram Treasure figures? Because I only see paint loss on Ram Treasure figures like this. Any other custom, I don't see on any of them. So, is it the rubber that she uses that? And again, I'm not a customer, I'm not an artist, I don't know what it is. Is it some kind of is it some kind of sealant or something that she's not using properly? I don't know. I have to ask these questions because I'm not familiar. But knowing that when we pay, X amount of money on these things, and the things are always coming apart like that, it's frustrating. So, I mean, I look at Butch, right? And I'm looking at it, and I'm like messing around with it. I mean, he's got like it's got a punch. He's got like a little one-arm takeover. I mean, as a kid, what the heck could I do with this? Like, I would get these figures in a ring if I were a kid, and they would just be thrown off to the side. Royal Rumble style, right? Like, I would go to these other figures as a kid, and I'd mess with them. I'd occasionally pick these up, yada, 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 bam, throw them off to the side. Pick the other guys, wrestle those as a kid. Something like this, like, I couldn't use these as a kid, because for play purposes as a youngin' man, I wouldn't have any enjoyment with these. And remember, mindset. Mindset will always go back to play pose only, because that is always what I'm looking at. Design-wise, Butch all day. If we're going by look and aesthetic, Butch will win this matchup, hands down. If we're looking at play pose, I think I could do a lot more if I was a kid wrestling these guys with Butch. I think I would have a lot more enjoyment. Fan-wise, nostalgia-wise, Sting to me for WCW is what Hulk Hogan was to me for WWF. I mean, we were rocking all the best of Hulkamania, VHSs when we were a kid. But shoot, we were all also rocking the best of Sting videos when we were kids too. So, it was sad that we never got a chance to watch Sting in WWF. But does that make a difference in this particular battle? I am going to go with Butch. I do think that Butch is the superior figure in this regard, so I am pushing Butch forward into round 2. So, Mr. Blade Runner himself is out of this tournament. Ooh. I am not looking forward to this matchup. I am not looking forward to this matchup, not one bit. Big gold belt. All right. Number 103. Upgraded George Steele takes on number 79 from Ram Treasures, Earthquake. And we'll start off with George Steele. So, original George Steele is not in this tournament, obviously. I did put original King Kong Bundy, and even though George Steele has the, this roughly the same pose with the arms down, I don't covet the George Steele original the same way I do covet the original George Bundy, King Kong Bundy. But I did want to put the upgraded George Steele in this tournament. Now, it just shows you a world of difference where arm positioning makes with wrestling action figure. With action figures in general, I guess. You take his arms, raise them up, do a 180, and arms go up like bam, or bring them up like bam. Whether they're down, bad, come up here, still bad, right? But, up here is still a much better pose than down like so, right? So, but, you go from bad to worse to a lot better. It's kind of like a Haku pose. It's kind of like a split between Haku meets Warlord. So Haku's arms are like so, which is one of the top 5, top 7 worst LJNs ever. But his arms are like yay high, yay apart, where Warlord's arms are like about this distance. So he's got the Warlord distance, but he's got the Haku, length. So in that respect, that's what made this figure so much better. His arms are high like Haku, but he's got the distance of the Warlord, so that separation was just enough to make this figure, superior. But if they lowered the hands down, like the hands were down like about here, okay, now you got something super crazy special. And adding on, clothing, does the chest hair, I like the chest hair, but it looks more like, skin lesions than chest hair, right? So, that's something. For 80s technology, I guess it's better than some customizers when all it looks like is they're rubbing on oil onto the chest and calling it chest hair. So those little skin tags, I guess, is a better example of chest hair than what others are doing. So, but adding on the clothing accessory, it's awesome. The pants, even the boots, man, you're adding designs and color for the figure. Better fighting pose, look, it is a solid piece. George Steele, he's been wrestling since the 60s, man. This guy, he's been around for a while. And you kind of see him in the ring. You start to think the man's a little but no, the man's an educator. Like I don't know if he graduated Ivy League, but he graduated from a pretty good college. What was it, like Michigan or something? I think he graduated from. Was it Michigan State or something? I don't know. I think it was a school in Michigan. I can't remember, but he was like a high school teacher and a coach and whatnot. So the man was an intellectual. But you see him move around the ring. You don't think that he's right upstairs. But that's just the persona that he played to perfection. And of course, when he was in WWF, and then of course renamed to WWF or whatever, he was supposed to be like this mega heel and everything. And then he just got over with the fans so much that he eventually turned babyface. And I guess somebody had thrown a pillow to him, and he bit into this pillow, and so eventually that just turned over to let's bite the darn turnbuckles, rip that sucker open. And I heard that he was like a smoker or something. And to freshen his breath, he always ate these mints. And those mints turned his tongue pink. Or not pink, I'm sorry. Turned his tongue blue. So that's kind of like why his tongue was always blue. So, so that's where the whole gimmick of blue tongue, eating turnbuckles come from. So, like, crazy. And what was it? Was it? I want to say WrestleMania 3. But I could have sworn I watched it in WrestleMania 1 or 2, but I'm almost positive it was WrestleMania 3, where he took on Randy Savage. And it had to be like one of the most boring freaking matches ever. I mean, I know for a lot of people are like, dude, you're crazy. That was like a highlight match of the WrestleMania. But I watched that and I'm like, dude, like, this is stupid. Like, Macho Man could take this guy anytime, anywhere, man. And Macho Man just running out, in and out of the ring, scared. I'm like, I get it, bad guy, Macho Man, whatever. But that match was so freaking boring. And, of course, George Steele was, like, crazy in love with Elizabeth and everything. And they're, like, fighting for her affection and stuff. I'm like, dude, Elizabeth don't want your hairy ass. I always talk about George Steele, and I always kind of compare him to one of my, well, not my staff sergeant, but there was a staff sergeant in headquarters, HHC, headquarters and headquarters company. Back in my unit during my first deployment. This was back in like 05, 06 during our first tour to Iraq. And I don't know why it is that whenever you're like the hairiest SOB on the planet, you always feel the need to take your shirt off around other people. I'm like, I remember when I was like in elementary school, and like I always had, well, I always have, but when I started growing hair on my legs, like I was embarrassed to go to gym class and wear shorts. And we're talking like 6th grade, man, 5th grade, 6th grade, and I had hairy legs, man. And we're not talking the hairiest legs in the world. I mean, we're not talking werewolf legs or anything, but obviously I had hair on my legs, and I was embarrassed to wear shorts in gym class. But this guy was a freaking full-on damn werewolf, man. And I'm like, how are you walking around the damn tent? Freaking 150, 200 guys, and you're damn full-on body. But that guy put George Steele to a freaking shame. So I look at George Steele, and I remember that guy, Sergeant Strickland. Oh, God. Special shout out to Sergeant Strickland. He's still around. That son of a gun. He was a cool ass dude, though. I just got the damn visual in my head. Some of the damn things that you remember that just will never leave your damn mind. But yeah, this is definitely one of my coolest figures. I like this one a lot. No doubt about it. I think a couple Christmases ago, I picked up from Kevin Pelkey, Print Fury, a couple resin figures from him off eBay. And they were both Earthquake figures. One was Earthquake in blue, kind of like your Hasbro Series 3 Earthquake. Another Earthquake was his Natural Disasters in this color scheme. They were both resin figures. That's what Kevin makes. He makes resin pieces. So this previous year, this year, 2025, Ram Treasures released a couple Natural Disasters. She had Fred Ottman's Tugboat, and then she came out later on with Typhoon, and then she also came out with, of course, with John Tenta's Earthquake, and she came out with the blue Canada Earthquake. I should have gone with that stock photo, and I'm like, no, I don't want that. That blue, it's so plain. How about I go with the blue Earthquake from Hasbro? But I'm like, you know what? I already have that from Kevin Pelkey, resin. So why don't I go with this? It's a different color scheme. Everyone is going to have that other blue Earthquake. I want something different. I didn't realize I already had this down color scheme as well. I had two of them, and I didn't realize I had this exact one as well, so I kind of shot myself in the foot. I should just went with the original blue Canada version that she had. So I now have two of these, one in resin, one in rubber. But here, this is what we'll talk about. This right here could potentially now be on Ram Treasure's exclusive list of top 10 best figures. This one is done extremely well. And if the paint ever starts chipping on this sucker, I'm going to be frustrated. But head sculpt is good. You know, good bald spot. I like the long hair. You know, paint so far is holding up. Boots, like I said, I love the dual color. You add in the extra shoelaces for the extra detail. Love it. What's that called? A seismograph? Is that what it's called? I even like the way that the letters are kind of shaking, you know, like going up and down. So I like the shaking of the letters. That looks pretty damn nifty. I like that a lot. The fighting pose is not the best on this. So Typhoon and Earthquake, they both have, you know, the same pose. I think they might have it swapped up a little bit with the point where the figures are, I think they're mirrored of each other, if I'm not mistaken. Tattoo, solid. George Steele, he actually lived a long life. I think he lived to be like 80 years old. But he died about, what was it, like 8 years ago? 2017, I believe. So he's been around for a while. John Tenta, I mean, I like the stories about John Tenta. You see him in the ring, and you think this guy's a beast, he's a monster, he's a horrible human being. Until you hear stories about him in the locker room. Nicest guy on the planet, according to anybody you talk to, anybody you hear stories that talks about him. And I think that's freaking fantastic. Or, you know, he was a sumo wrestler in Japan, right? Met a Japanese woman, fell in love with. Japanese sumo wrestlers didn't like that. Wanted her to break it off, you know, or leave professional sumo wrestling. I choose love over the sport. Left sumo wrestling so that he didn't have to leave his woman. I'm like, respect. Mad respect. So, all around, I mean, there's nothing, no story, anything that you could say negative about this guy. I thought that first matchup was going to be the toughest. I'm thinking this might be the toughest match so far because these are both perfect pieces so far. I'm loving both of them, and I really can't find any bad things to say about either piece, really. History for both. I at least have more history with Earthquake. I really didn't have a lot of growing up with George Steele, and Earthquake could be, you know, one of my top 3, top 5 favorite bad guys of all time. Good guys. I mean, one of my top, if not my top 10, he's got to be like my top 12, top 15 favorite wrestlers, period. Does that put him over the top for that nostalgic reason? I think my history with Earthquake, I think that right there had to do it for me. Otherwise, George Steele might have won this battle, but I think history with Earthquake had to be my final determining factor. Because otherwise, literally, neck and neck, right on par across the board. What could I do to give a definitive answer, to put one over the other? And this was straight across the board. There was no answer, no clear-cut winner. But nostalgia and history with Earthquake is the one factor that I did have to rely on. So for that purpose, I am choosing Earthquake to move forward to round 2. All right. Last matchup. We are going to feature number 10. Number 10, Bruno Sammartino. And he squares off against number 115, the Galoob 2-Up of Barry Windham. So, we'll start off with Bruno. A freaking legend, man. obviously I didn't have a lot of history with Bruno Sammartino, and this is one of those guys that you really don't know a whole lot about, not until you start collecting LJNs and you start trying to get more history about these characters. But, I mean, Bruno Sammartino's been in wrestling since, what, the 1960s? And from, like, 1963, I want to say. Like, 1963 to, like, 1971, this man was heavyweight champion of WWF. How do you have an 8-year title run in professional wrestling? That's like Vern Gagne type of a run. That's insane. At least Vern Gagne was owner, promoter, wrestler of AWA, but to have that sort of a 10-year sort of run as a heavyweight champion in Worldwide Wrestling Federation, so was insane. And he had multiple large runs. He had another run, I think, was it 73, I think? 73 to 77. So another 4 years. So, you know, your Bob Backlunds, your Hulk Hogan's, your Bret Hart's. I mean, these guys had multiple years of heavyweight championship runs, right? But 8 years. Crazy. Now, I looked at the figure, right? And I'm like, it's a good figure. I mean, it's got that slouch, that feet separation I like. But, you know, like your Kamala, your Big John Studd, your Hogan, and your Andre. You know, the to-be body slam pose, which I enjoy. You gotta remember, a lot of guys in the 40s, 50s, you know, 60s, they had a certain type of stance and whatnot, especially during photographs and whatnot. So, it's like real wrestling, if you will. You know, you're sort of your high school, your amateur wrestling, your high school wrestling, your collegiate wrestling, stuff like that. Your Steiner brothers with, like, you know, Rick Steiner when he wears the head earmuffs and, you know, got the singlets and you're on the mat on the floor and stuff. That type of amateur wrestling. So that's the type of pose when you look at this figure. You think about that type of stuff. You don't think professional wrestling with a big old giant ring and throwing against the ropes and body slams and stuff. But who was it? Was it Savage? Or I don't know, who was it? Was it Savage or who was it? Oh man. Or was it Piper? When he got into a big old fuss because he broke the guy's freaking larynx or whatever. Oh my God, how am I just forget it? Like, why does that always happen to me? Like, I will know the answer a million times out of a million. The second I start talking about it, I forget it. But I think it was Savage, man. Anyways, I'll look it up afterwards and I'll put it in the comments because, but the same issue that I had with this figure is like what I'm having with figures like Ric Flair from Galoob. Yeah, you're slouched, legs spread apart, but your hands are spread apart. They're down low. And do I have Ric Flair over here? I don't, but oh yeah, I do. You're basically given this the same exact figure, right? And that right there, with your hands down low, separated, like, why? Like, that hurts the figure so bad. So this could have been, like, it's got a good, like, because of the way when you hold the figure, the way that the elbows dig into your hands, right? He could have a much better grip to the figure, but the way that the elbows dig into your hands, it doesn't give you the best grip. Kind of like Junkyard Dog. Even though his arms don't dig into your hands, it's a good play pose, but it doesn't give you the best grip. So it's a very funky hold to the figure, a very funky grip to the figure. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's a fun figure to use if you're a kid or if you're an adult who wants to wrestle these things. It's very odd. So it's a serviceable figure. You can still do a lot of things and have a lot of fun with it. It's just not the greatest. That's why I say Bruno Sammartino has a lot of potential, but it could be probably a very, you know, mid-tier figure for you. Oh, side note, WrestleMania 1, I would argue probably a horrible WrestleMania. I know a lot of people love it. I think it was terrible. His son David, and I think it was Brutus Beef. I think it was going against Brutus Beefcake. I think that was probably the most entertaining match of the entire WrestleMania. And it's funny because a lot of people argue that, hey, David Sammartino was a pretty shitty wrestler, but I didn't see it. Like, I watched that WrestleMania. I thought David Sammartino was pretty darn solid, and I thought the David Sammartino Brutus Beefcake match was probably the highlight of that WrestleMania. But that's just my opinion. And then the Widowmaker, Barry Windham. I mean, he kind of like bounced back and forth between WWF and WCW in the 80s, 90s, but obviously in WWF with the US Express, with Mike Rotunda, multiple tag team champion with them. In 88, 89, he turned on tag team partner Lex Luger, joined forces with Brainbusters and Ric Flair. Well, I call them Brainbusters, but Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson and Ric Flair in NWA, WCW, to become the Four Horsemen. Left the promotion, family reasons, usually had to do with like travel, stuff like that. So wanted to be with family, and came back in like 1990, rejoined Four Horsemen again, stayed for like another year, whatever. But so he was part of Four Horsemen multiple times. I'm gonna pause, guys, because I gotta blow my nose. Sorry. Sorry, guys. I didn't want to keep sniffling on the darn camera. I probably still am, but hopefully it does a little bit better. Barry Windham, though, don't have the most knowledge of Barry Windham in the world, but just enough information for you guys. But the action figure, here's another one. I would have figured if I had Barry Windham Galoob as a kid, I would have freaking loved the hell out of this. Since I started collecting Galoobs, back in like 21 with the rest of the line, I've always made the statement: if you are locked up in a prison cell, I don't care how old you are, doesn't matter, irrelevant, right? If you are locked up in a prison cell and somebody said, hey, you don't have access to any books, TV, anything, you're gonna be locked here for the rest of your life, you're gonna be bored out of your mind, but what we're gonna give you is a bunch of freaking toys. Whatever. Again, this is for the sake of argument. What do you want to play with? That just sounds freaking weird, but again, this is just the scenario that we're dealing with. And somebody gave you a bunch of Galoob figures. You could have all of the Galoob line, or you could have Sid Vicious and Barry Windham. Take Sid Vicious and Barry Windham, because you could have more fun with those two figures alone than you probably could with all the other figures combined. Those two figures in tandem work beautifully together. And for Mountain Treasures, Galoob 2-Up, another piece I absolutely love. Again, this is what I'm noticing this more and more as I'm doing this tournament more than ever before. And it's because, again, I have real figures nowadays to compare them to. And I've always had real figures to compare them to because original LJN, right? But I've never really cared before because I was just so excited and so happy, so thrilled to have more figures to add to the LJN lineup. So before, when you looked at the poor rubber, the poor skin tone and all that, you didn't really complain. You didn't really... It may have bothered you, but you really didn't say much about it because you lived with it. You accepted it because you knew it was a custom and you were just grateful to add more things to your roster. But now you look at your other figures and you're like, you're paying 3 times the price for these customs and the quality that you're getting is just not there. The original Galoob figure, again, one of the greatest action figures ever. I like the figure a lot. It's just taking one of my all-time favorite figures and blowing it up. But is it worth what you pay from the Etsy shop? If they're still reutilizing the same rubber, guys, no. I wouldn't endorse it just for that purpose. Do I still recommend the figure in general? Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's one of the greatest pieces ever in that respect. But, I mean, for me, this is an easy answer. Barry Windham, 1,000,000%. I mean, take away the fact of the rubber, the skin tone, oh well. We can live with that for the sake of this tournament. The fact is, this is arguably one of the greatest. Again, I know it's a Galoop 2-up, but take away the rubber and all that. Omit that. It is still one of the greatest figures ever. And in this tournament, there are very, very, very few figures that could top this piece. And the fact that it is a boots and trunks only figure, and I'm saying that there's very few pieces that could top it, that just shows you the level of affection I have for this particular piece. So, not only do I think that Barry Windham is a legitimate contender to win the tournament, this is a figure that I think is going to go extremely far in this tournament. With that being said, what do I always say? A figure I say could win a tournament could probably be a first round elimination. I say a figure could win a tournament in round 1, could move on to round 2, and be taken out in round 2. It happens all the time. But I expect this one to do very well and to go very far in this tournament. So, Barry Windham does defeat Bruno Sammartino, and we'll move on to round 2. So, guys, that does conclude this 13th episode. And so Sunday, I'm pondering whether or not I want to bypass past comments and say that I'm going to do only 2 episodes a week and put out 3 episodes this week, as usual, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, because I really want to get this tournament completed as quickly as possible. And if I cut back to 2 episodes a week, Sunday, Thursday, that's going to push us back to about February or so, maybe even March before the tournament's completed. And I'm going to let you guys decide. When I post the video, in the comments section, let me know. Do you guys still want me to post 3 videos a week, or would you prefer that I cut it down to 2 episodes a week? So, I will make that determination based on your commentary. If you want 3 episodes a week, I will do it. If you wanted me to cut it down, again, it's your call. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, thanks, everybody.